There's a video by Jason Hanrahan called The Bonsai Beginner Mistake We All Make. And it's a good video. I'll link it in the description. Now, not to spoil the premise of that video, but the bonsai beginner mistake we all make, according to this video, is putting a tree in a bonsai pot too early. I don't fundamentally disagree. It is a mistake we all make. It's a mistake that I've made. I have trees that will always be quite small and humble because I put them in a bonsai pot too early. And I have trees that I took out of bonsai pots and put back into garden pots because I realized that I'd made that mistake and they were never going to amount to much. But perhaps just because I'm contrarian, today I want to talk about the other side of that. I want to talk about why, especially if you're a beginner, you should put trees in bonsai pots too early. And more, I want to talk in defense of what often get maligned as sticks in pots. That is, skinny bonsai trees without a substantial trunk that have no prospect of ever turning into one of those magnificent old specimens you see in pictures. Because actually, I like them. I think they can be good. Anyway, to explain how I feel about sticks in pots, I need to talk a little about my own history. Number one, my history. I've talked about this before, but when I first got into bonsai, I did actually know that you couldn't grow a thick-trunked bonsai in a bonsai pot. It was actually almost the only thing I knew about bonsai. But when I was first starting out, I didn't want to put a lot of money I didn't have into buying big, established trees when I didn't know if it was a hobby I would stick with or if I would even kill the tree. So I bought skinny garden center trees. Some of them I grew on and some of them I put straight into bonsai pots. And I still have almost all of those, and I've talked about some of them in my last video. I also dug up a couple of scraggly bushes from beside a road because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. And those trees died pretty quickly and I felt bad about that. When I started doing bonsai in Korea, I was aware that I was probably not going to spend the rest of my life in that country. So I made a decision. And that decision was that I would not spend time trying to grow thick trunks because I knew that my time in Korea would probably be temporary and I wouldn't keep these trees for the rest of my life. And for the same reason, I didn't see any point in buying big established trees, although they are somewhat easier to find and cheaper in Korea than they are in Australia. So I decided to just ignore the whole fat trunk issue and just make the best trees I could with my little seedlings. Over time, I found that I came to quite like these small trees. They were fun, they were easy to wire, I could do goofy things like plant them on chunks of stone or roof tiles without worrying if they died or not. And even though their trunks never thickened much, they still grew and gained character over time. Another important milestone for me was seeing the trees at Oita. And I know I've referenced this a lot, but it was pivotal for me. They were beautiful and they paid no attention to the thickness of trunks. It was just beside the point. And I liked that very much. As I've gone further into bonsai, I've also become more discerning. And one thing I've come to realize about those amazing fat-trunked trees is that often the fat trunk is all there is. They have a technically proficient and utterly conventional canopy wired over the top, which is allowed to fill out, and the result is an amazing tree. But the reality is often that there is nothing particularly special about the tree at all. It's just a trunk and some technique and a lot of bonsai hierarchies and algorithms that will inevitably lead to a certain result. I'm certainly not saying that all thick-trunked bonsai are like that, but eventually, after looking at a lot of bonsai, you do become discerning enough to see the difference between something that is unique and fascinating and something that's just an ancient trunk from the wild with a generic canopy draped over it. Cut to the present, and in Australia, some of my original sticks in pots have become quite nice. Not amazing, but I think respectable bonsai trees. Some of my growing on trees are starting to get some mass in their trunks, and that's nice too. But increasingly, I don't have any particular preference for bonsai with thick trunks. The more I think about it, the more I think thin-trunked bonsai trees are just fine, and in some ways preferable to trees with thick trunks. Number 2, what else is a beginner supposed to do? There's a question I think is worth asking. If you are a beginner, what else are you supposed to do besides put a stick in a pot? You can do what I call the boomer bonsai approach, which is to spend a lot of money buying a lot of big, established bonsai trees with the goal of caring for them a few years until you die. And I guess that makes sense if you have plenty of money and not much time left. Or you can buy some expensive pre-bonsai material and run the risk of killing it because you don't know what you're doing yet. Or you can plant some trees in pots with the plan to grow them for many years. But if you do that, how much fun are you going to get out of your hobby? And I do recommend doing that, actually. Growing things on is its own experience and will also teach you a lot about the process of making a bonsai. But you're probably going to want to have some bonsai trees in pots. Maybe there are things you start yourself, or maybe they're trivial molesci with little chance of success. But even these, over time, will show progress. And probably these beginner trees, the ones you don't kill anyway, are the trees that you will end up having the most sentimental attachment to, even if one day they are far from your best bonsai. Number 3, a stick in a pot will make the best bonsai, eventually. You can thicken a trunk quickly by growing it in the ground, or less quickly by growing it in a garden pot. But the truth is that the best bonsai are ones that grow incredibly slowly. Some of the most valued bonsai are trees collected from nature, which have grown in marginal environments at the edge of their range for hundreds of years. The slow rate of growth gives them incredible character while keeping them compact. Growing a trunk quickly in the ground, then cutting it back will simply never give you that same sort of character and individuality. It's also not correct to say that a trunk will never thicken once it's placed in a bonsai pot. It will continue to thicken year after year. It's just that it will happen very slowly, similarly to those wild trees. Unfortunately, we're limited by human lifespans, but if you really want to create the greatest bonsai possible from scratch, you should grow it from the start in a small pot. Number 4, apart from trunk thickness, everything else will age the same or better. A bonsai tree won't thicken quickly in a bonsai pot, but in every other way it will gain character and age at the same rate, or even faster, as it would growing in some other kind of environment. It will develop bark possibly faster. At least that's my experience, and I've heard Ryan Neal say the same thing. It will ramify at least the same rate, and possibly faster if you're giving it more attention. It will develop a spreading root base faster if it's in a reasonably flat pot, and it will generally take on the characteristic look of an older tree. So by growing a stick in a pot, the only thing you're really giving up is trunk development. Number 5. Yamadori is a dirty word. This is a topic I've been reluctant to talk about because it goes against what is generally accepted in bonsai, but I want to say it. Yamadori, that is collecting trees from the environment, is shit. Calling it by a Japanese name doesn't make it any better. It's hard because there is a spectrum and it requires judgment. And as humans, we have an amazing ability to rationalize doing the things we want to do. It's easy to make excuses. Now, I've collected trees, but the things I collect are baby seedlings growing in vacant lots or by the side of the road. I think that's fine, but it's possible I'm just rationalizing my own actions. And there are things I've collected in the past that I wouldn't collect today. It starts to become more questionable when you're removing adult native trees from where they're supposed to be growing. There is a good argument, which I personally believe, that you should probably just leave them where they are. And It becomes, in my opinion, obscene when you're removing ancient specimens that have grown for hundreds of years in nature in order to style them up and call them your bonsai. It's just gross. It's destructive and aesthetically repugnant. I don't think future generations are going to look kindly on it. Now, I don't like anthropomorphizing bonsai. There is no cruelty inflicted on trees by doing that. They aren't sentient creatures and have no awareness of what we do to them. But there is a more serious issue. When you're taking a tree that has grown at the very edge of its possible niche and managed to survive in that place for hundreds of years through changing climates, you don't know what unique and highly adaptive genes have survived only in that tree. Genes which might be crucial to that species surviving in the future. And I just think it's wrong to dig that up so you can make a bonsai. I don't think you should covet those ancient trees you see the stars of bonsai working with. I don't think we should fetishize them or lionize the people who go out and dig them up. Nature's masterpieces belong in nature. They shouldn't be turned into your private property. Number 6. Thicker isn't always better. It does seem to me a little ironic that in bonsai, an art form that's all about keeping things small, there is so much focus on big trunks. It also seems to me to be a particularly male sort of an obsession. You know, I do wonder when people talk about, oh, I want a thick trunk, I want a girthy trunk. Are you really talking about your bonsai, or are you talking about something else? Number 7. Thick trunks have little to do with the quality of a bonsai. What matters is character and individuality. Is it like 1,000 other bonsai, or is it uniquely beautiful? And that is something that's hard to achieve. I'm certainly not claiming that I've ever achieved it, but I hope to one day. Although it's still only a baby, I like the direction this maple clump is going. I feel like it's probably the closest tree I have to one that expresses how I individually want to grow bonsai. I think it will be a nice tree someday. An amazing trunk can certainly help to give a bonsai a unique character, but when it does happen, it's likely to be the work of nature. We can admire a tree with a magnificent trunk like that, but I think it should really be evaluated separately from those parts of a bonsai that are created by the bonsai artist. J.D. Salinger, in Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters, retells a Tao parable about Duke Mu of Qin. In this story, the Duke asks Polo, a wise man, to find him a superlative horse, but Polo says he's too old and suggests another, a friend of his. The friend goes out and finds what he says is a superlative horse. The Duke asks him what kind of horse it is, and the man replies, "It's a dun-colored mare." But when the horse arrives, it's a black stallion. Angry, the Duke calls for Polo and tells him that his friend is a charlatan who can't even tell the color or sex of a horse. Here's the conclusion of the story. Polo heaved a sigh of satisfaction. "Has he really got as far as that?" he cried. "Ah, then he is worth 10,000 of me put together. There is no comparison between us. What Cao keeps in view is the spiritual mechanism. In making sure of the essential, he forgets the homely details. Intent on the inward qualities, he loses sight of the external. He sees what he wants to see and not what he does not want to see. He looks at the things he ought to look at, neglects those that need not be looked at. So clever a judge of horses is Cao that he has it in him to judge something better than horses. When the horse arrived, it turned out indeed to be a superlative animal. May we all be equally skilled when we look at a bonsai to see what is important and disregard the things that are not. Sincerely, Zachary Growing.